Good evening, my friends and fellow voices. Hey, after almost 18 months of our evening chats, we are so excited to welcome anyone out there to join our joyful discussions on enlightened living and the many paths to get there. We're going to kick it out to the three of us to share our motivation and expectations for the Three Voices podcast. Why don't you start it off, Rob?
Thanks, RS. Appreciate that. I'm very happy to be here. It's been a great journey so far over the last 18 months. When you actually issued the call for us to get together on a regular basis to share our respective, you could call it spiritual journeys, which for all of us, it's been a while. We've been on a path of growth for many years, and I welcome the opportunity to to meet and share that journey with friends. Why? Well, I find that sometimes it gets lonely out there, but more importantly, I find that a dialogue like the kind we've been engaged in is a great learning experience and offers an opportunity for greater clarity and further learning. Um, and for me, that means bringing out the essence that I continue to discover in myself, bringing out the goodness in terms of how I live my life, trying to live a life of balance and harmony, and to continue to develop expertise to be useful to the world. And I think it's a great opportunity to share with the wider community and broaden our dialogue because I think there's a hunger out there for this kind of dialogue, and I'm eager to broaden the circle from the three voices to a much larger audience. So I think I'll stop there and have you guys share, and then we could build on it as we discuss.
All right, take it away, Thomas.
Yes, my position here on this is that there's a near constant struggle in our minds between internal and external realities, with the internal taking most of our, taking the greater portion of our attention most of the time, most frequently. And for me, enlightenment is in being simultaneously aware of both the internal and the external realities, with a greater portion of my attention being focused on the external, because the external is a more objective reality than the internal reality. Internally, we have, like, for instance, right now, all of us are in the present moment. It is different for each of us, but the moment itself remains the same. So in terms of it being the moment, and we have a choice whether we want to be in our head, viewing reality through our mind, or if we want to be more in reality as it is outside of our body or outside of our mind, not our body particularly, but we are actually in both our mind internally and externally at the same time. Both these functions occupy the mind near constantly. The problem is the ratio. We need to try, at least in my view, enlightenment switches us from being more internally focused to being more externally focused. That doesn't eliminate the internal. It just brings it under our control, because mostly we aren't controlling our attention. It's being controlled by stimulus. And so a way to correct that, which benefits us in our life in many ways, for example, if something disturbs us, let's say somebody cuts you off on the road, our mind is going to start replaying that incident over and over again, trying to derive some kind of satisfaction out of something we can't change. The best thing to do is to be present, to be more in the moment and just let it pass through us, because we can't do anything with it. So from my point of view, enlightenment revolves around attention control and an understanding that much of our attention, most of the time, is focused on an internal perception of external reality rather than external reality itself.
Oh, I see. So your reason for doing this, Thomas, in a sentence or two, is what?
To help wake us up, all
Okay.
of us, myself included, of course, because the moment's going by very quickly and we have this choice almost constantly. Where are we going to put our attention? What's it focused on? Because every moment there's a new choice. And we are not usually attentive enough to what's going on inside our mind to be able to make that change, that correction of our own free will. It's being made for us by the stimulus. I think it's better for us as individuals and certainly as a whole to have more control over how we respond to what's in our mind rather than having our mind control us.
Well, I'll give you my side of the view now. You know, doing this for so long and sharing our experiences with each other, like Rob seems to have said, I believe I personally have spiritually grown and learn to see things from, others' eyes. The idea of the three voices was to or is to allow us to go back and forth and challenge each other to see the world as a dynamic and exciting place to live. Uh, my way of life and purpose, as I see it, is to live every moment to its fullest potential for peace and joy and sharing. And as we grow spiritually, we recognize the beauty and interconnectedness of all people and nature, and we seek to share these insights to bring the joy of living to anyone who wants to travel that path with us. Too many people are frustrated. Rob, you said sometimes you're lonely. Well, hopefully, we have helped to alleviate some of that, but enlightened living should do that. Enlightened living should take one away from being alone and recognizing we're all part of a bigger and better and lovely world. So, the idea of these sessions is to share with an audience how the three of us see our way of living. And to me, I live as a spiritual man. I live life with a smile and joy every day, no matter what happens. Bad or good, we accept where we are and we move forward without those chains that you talk about. Thomas, those chains exist. You have hit it on the head when you say, that we are bombarded by stimuli and chains calling us back to uh, we'll call it experience, growth, not growth, I mean education, family, whatever. So, as enlightened people, we want to live independently of those stimulants and be able then to go from being independent to interconnected. And I'd like to start it with my mantra. This is why I do the podcasts. Let a person live harmlessly and as a shepherd of faith and as one in whom the light shines to become a light bearer in a dark world. That's what I think. We've got a dark world around us and we need to bring light into it. That's what I am hoping we do with the three voices.
Yes, if I could add here, I mean my for a very long time, I mean I most of my understanding or not understanding my sense of enlightenment revolved a lot around just being out of my head because we can observe fairly clearly that attention is sucked into our head fairly quickly and it's hard to get it to take it out of there. But I found that I actually cannot take it out. I mean, over the years now, and I've been doing this for many, many years, we can't actually eliminate or or completely stop the mind from processing data and the reflection of that processing entering our range of vision and attaching identities to it. So that's going to happen. What I've realized more recently for me, which I hope is also helpful to other people, is that in enlightenment is a kind of a dualistic state, certainly at the level I'm at now, where I am aware of both the internal and the external reality simultaneously. That is the awareness of, which is what I consider enlightenment to be, is aware of both what is going on inside my head and what is happening externally at the same time. But I am not aware of it. I have to become, I have to leave behind any anticipation I have of what's going to be in my head or what's going to be external to me, and just let the awareness be there on its own. I've gotten a little better at that, but one of the things that's been really helpful to me is seeing that both of these things, the internal and the external realities, are processing at the same time. Our tendency overall, as I said earlier, is to tend toward what is giving us an identity, which is in our head. We're not getting identity externally, it's only in our mind. So we tend toward what's in our mind, and then we view through what's in our mind, the reality external to us, imposing upon that reality our perception of self. That gives us value, and we attach to that. And that's conditional for us throughout the world. I mean, we do this all the time. People do this. I don't know that animals do it, but certainly humans do. So the objective for me now is to just try and maintain more attention on the awareness of, and not the subject of the external or the internal.
What do you think, Rob?
Um, I certainly see it a little bit different. I mean, I, you,
Hopefully so. The purpose of Three
I
Voices.
mean, RS, you talk about being a light within a dark world.
Yes,
Um,
I do.
the world, there's a lot of light in the world as well, so it's not like we're all fumbling around and that we're obligated to be the light. There is much light out there, and there's also light inside. And I think it's possible to cultivate that light, to cultivate an awareness of that light externally and internally. Um, and that's something that I set out to do every day. And in doing so, I'm able to bring that into my daily living and be have with greater clarity and greater compassion for others. Um, and it kind of builds on itself over time. And I do think it's important to engage in some kind of practice to be able to cultivate this sense of whether it's light or stillness or presence in order to deepen and experience it more fully so that we can also share it with others.
Hmm.
How do you do that, Rob? How do you accomplish these things?
I mean, I do have a daily practice. I've had one most of my adult life. It's been informed by various teachers, whether the teacher is someone that wrote a one of the books of wisdom in the past, or a living person that I think has reached a more advanced state of consciousness. And so I've settled on, a number of practices to do that, and I spend, a good half hour to an hour in the morning and in the evening engaged in, I'm not going to go into the details of the practice, but engaged in various types of meditation and awareness practices. And increasingly, I try to remember to continue to practice, even if it's only for 5 minutes during the day or various moments throughout the day, to bring myself back to a centered place. Because if it's just a matter of being aware of the external world and being aware of the internal world, that could be crazy making. So I find the need to engage in these practices to cultivate more of a focus and more of a stillness so that I could experience that light, that seems to be, to me, to be part of this path toward enlightened living.
Yeah,
And how and
sorry,
how does
sorry.
that affect
Hmm.
the way you deal with others when you get out of your meditation, when you walk outside your door? How does what you have learned or practice affect what you see when you go out?
Well, I find myself to be um, kind of more in a contented place. So I'm not grasping on this or that, but I'm seeing things, I want to say as they are, but I'm seeing things with a minimized sense of uh, trying to control and just being able to see things as they are. So I'm quite receptive and quite friendly, I'd say, and appreciative and grateful for my situation and for what the world brings me in my interactions. So I think it really makes for a more harmonious interaction with others. And I think it puts people at ease so that they are more likely to, let's say, be themselves, not be threatened, and be more open for sharing and interaction.
Well, I would have to say to you that I smilingly agree with the last part of your comments there, that I believe the most important part of enlightenment is that which or when we deal with others. When we go outside, I believe the practices of meditation and education and learning, and reading, and again, I'll double on meditation, is important in developing the mental skills. But like a musician that only practices alone in their house, is it really, have they really done a good thing if they don't share that talent or that music, with others? Or Thomas, like an artist that paints hundreds of pictures but never shares them with others. I'm not saying any one of us are that way, but I am saying there's a lot of people in the world that identify too much with the I, too much with their own world, and they don't recognize or they're oblivious to the others around them. And so, to me, enlightened living is truly manifest when one walks outside that door, okay, outside the door of one's home, if you will, or daily environment. When one walks out that door, there are several things that come into contact. Nature. What do you see? Is it a cityscape? Is it a countryscape? Are you looking at a farm? Are we looking at high-rise buildings? Are we where, what are we looking at first? And to see that with an understanding that it's all part of one greater thing. And that the more enlightened we become, the more we realize we have to share and serve and share these ideas with others. Because when we talk about what other people think, okay, we should not, lose fact that the world is a dark place. I'm sorry you question that. But we know for a very big fact that there are many, many, many sad, despicable, foolish, wasteful things happening in the world. That too many people are concerned how much money can they make? How well can I take care of my family? How much can I make to take care of how much do I need to take care of my family? What do I need for me to be happy? Okay. And that's not the answer. The answer is how can I be part of it all? How can I share my ideas? But when I walk down the street, can I smile at a stranger and get a smile back? It's not as easy as it sounds. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, don't misconstrue my statement, and maybe I failed
Oh,
to.
I didn't misconstrue. I wasn't even, go
When,
ahead, but say
when I
yours again to make it more clear.
when I talk about the darkness, when I mention that it's not all dark, I
Oh,
acknowledge the darkness in the
okay.
world, but there's also a lot of light in the world. Whether it's the light of the beauty of nature, the light in friendships, the light in people's creativity, the light in people's celebration, the light in uh, people practicing spirituality together, people dancing together, people serving each other. There is much light out there, and so if one leans too heavily into a light and dark construct with the world, and then I think you run the risk of missing something, and so I just want people to realize that there is a lot of goodness, and it's there for all of us to appreciate.
I want to say to you that I did not misconstrue that, but you are more clear now, and I agree with you, 100%. When I refer to a dark world, it doesn't mean there isn't goodness and light out there. In fact, there's tremendous light out there. And that's the whole idea of enlightened living. You are tapping into that light. You are recognizing it. That same light of nature that you talk about, you could have two people walking out your building door and they see two completely different things. So, yes, there is a lot of light out there. And hopefully, I, for one, can say to myself, I live within it and work towards continuing to live in it, and spread it. But there is a tremendous amount of sadness, loneliness, separateness, and suffering in the world. So when I talk about being a light bearer in a dark world, it means to become one who does not let that darkness seed or let their light seed to the darkness. And very much, Thomas, it's kind of like what you said, not to let that external control or that external stimulus take over our internal perception. True enlightenment allows a person to stand as an observer and separate from those chains and poles. What do you think?
Yeah, I would, part of my thinking we've talked about before, and it seems to me relevant for to any beginning to answer the question of what is enlightenment.
Okay.
Whatever enlightenment is, the only place it can take place is in the present, because it can't take place in the past and it can't take place in the future. Past tense and future tense are not present tense. Anytime that we decide we want to benefit ourselves and other people, it has to be initiated through the present in some way. And what I pointed out, or what has become really clear to me earlier, is that there's this divergence between internal and external focus, with the concept of the awareness of both actually not reaching us most of the time. We just don't think, what are we actually aware of right now? Like right now, everyone that's listening to us is aware of something. Are they aware? Are we aware of being here in the present we're in, having this conversation? We will be to a certain extent because we are divided in our attention between the internal and the external consistently. There's this constant struggle going on. And we have an option, once we know that is happening, to choose between them or neither one. Choosing neither one puts us in a position where the observer, as you point out, RS, is paramount, because the observer is not the subject of observation. It's just the observer. It's not taking an identity out of being in the present. And so we want to be in that state if we can be, and try and make our decisions from that, again, if we can, rather than just being stimulated and responding all the time.
Yeah.
But we have to be in the present. We have to recognize that we are not sufficiently in the present to make that choice.
I would have to say to you, our definitions of the present might be a little different, but I would concur that you cannot be enlightened if you are pulled by the past or the future, that you must be in the present. One way or the other, you must be of the mind to say to yourself, I am here now. Okay? I see what's around me. I see what's happening, but I will not let it affect my judgment and my action. I will decide how to react or act to stimulus. I will decide how I should think by my own reckoning, in the present. And so, yes, I think we share that common, paths crossing at the idea that, you have to be here now. You have to accept and understand what's going on around you, and then you move to react as you decide by your own current will, not by that of an ego or other imposed action.
Yeah, I
So,
would add with Rob what you said, and both of you what you said about the meditation. One of the things that happened to me years ago in India, I was talking with a friend there about a guru that he was following, and they were talking about being in the presence of this guru and how elevating it was. And it was revelation. It was a revelation for me as well, because I said, well, what happens when you leave? So like you said, pointed out, Rob, I mean, you do your meditations, and Rick, you mentioned it too. We don't live in a meditative state. We live in a chaotic human world. And you can isolate yourself. You can go to an ashram or a monastery and sit all day meditating. But then it's like you said, Rick, what happens when you have to get up? I mean, we don't know when our last breath is going to come. It's likely not going to come when we're sitting down meditating. We need to be prepared all the time by being in the present as often as we can for whatever is coming at any moment. So we have to be able to take enlightenment with us. We say we are talking about enlightened living, not just being enlightened here or there. We're talking about living an enlightened life. We can't
right.
do that, in my view, without being in the present. And we can't be in the present if we don't know that we're not. We have to pay attention to our focus of attention and see what's taking it. Where is it going? Who's got it? Do we have it? Who's taking it from us? I mean, people are on their phones constantly with their attention dragged through the ethers of the internet. I mean,
How do you know when you're in the present?
sorry,
How do you know when you're in the present?
because the awareness is there.
The
I just call it, I just call it the awareness of because it's too difficult to label the experience. As we all know, and anybody listening to us that's been trying to become more enlightened, we know that there's no kind of single enlightenment. There's no all-encompassing understanding or view of what it is. It's just a higher state, and it keeps getting higher. It takes more into it. We gain more out of it, and we have more to give from it the longer we do it. But what it actually is, I just keep calling it the awareness of, because as soon as what we put a label on it, even when we try and define it for ourselves as an experience we want to pass on or repeat in some way in ourselves, that puts us back in the past because all definitions are past tense. So we get stuck again. We have to keep coming back to have some degree of awareness of. And what I've noticed, as I mentioned earlier, more recently for me that I'm finding very helpful is that this dualistic division in our mind or in our perception of reality between the internal and the external. These things are going on constantly. We're constantly deriving something from either one. And we primarily, as I said earlier, also, at least from my observations, we're primarily in the head because the head gives us our identity. The external world doesn't. So we want to be where we have some control, and we have control that we think we do over our attention and our mind, giving us identity. But at the same time, we're not actually conscious of being in the moment. But discerning this difference between being in the present and not being in the present in this moment right now, we can do it. Anybody listening right now can observe themselves and check, where's my attention? Is it on this man speaking, the words he's saying? Is it on that and me sitting in my chair listening to him? Or am I just having his words in my head and I'm only focused on that? Or what else? I mean, there are other things, but everybody right now listening to us and following this program can check and see where they are in the moment they're in. Is there an awareness there or not?
and
May
where
I say
oh,
to you, wait, well, Rob, I wanted to say it. May I say to you, after so many times listening, I would use the word bingo. You hit it on the head there. The last statement I was going to ask, and I'd pass it back to you, whatever you want to say, Rob, but I was going to ask us as we close this session to say what would you like to recommend to those listening that they get away from this or get from this, I meant. um, and Thomas, you gave a very magnificent summary that you basically said from your perception one has to be aware, one has to be in the present, and that you cannot continue to be enlightened unless you make yourself focus your attention. Um, well said. Rob, I cut you off. I'm sorry, but I really wanted to emphasize Thomas's point, and please jump back in.
I'm going to make sort of a counterpoint or maybe an addition
Okay,
and leave it because we are nearing the end. Leave it for further discussion.
right,
So I would, and you asked the question, what do we want our listeners to take away?
right.
I think one thing I would like them to take away is um, become aware of where their attention is.
Mm.
Where is your attention? That's a good practice, I think.
Yep,
And I think that awareness,
I like that.
my own awareness, I was going to ask Thomas, where is this awareness of if it's not in your head? But I personally believe that it's in one's whole being, which
Mm.
includes the body and the spirit and the mind. Um, I think awareness is a bigger thing, but I think that it's possible. There's an interesting polarity here because if you try to force the mind into the present, it's like a I don't know what's that like Mercury, where where you pour some mercury down on the table and you put your finger on it, it goes squirting all over the place. So, so I think that one can be aware of the future, be aware of the past, and be aware of the internal, be aware of the external, and there isn't necessarily a conflict in doing that. And all of that is part of the present. Because what else is there?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. Well, I think we've touched on a few great points to kick off this first session. Hopefully, anyone listening enjoyed it. Was there a takeaway from it? I think if there's one takeaway, it's the idea of the three voices. The fact that the three of us have there's much commonality between our thoughts, and yet, vive la différence. We have the ability of each of us to pursue um, that goal, our individual goal, in our own way. And I think the commonality part is the idea of being aware, being in the present, and as I'd like to add, to be non attached, to be able to act independently of stimulus and be one's own cause. And I think when we move forward, what I would like to see people get away or get or take away from what we say is that you can control what you're thinking. You can become more aware, but you have to work at it. And you have to take these different paths to it. And no one is, absolutely the right one. And there's probably a thousand more, if not hundreds of thousands, or who knows how many more. But that's, the idea. You have to work at being aware, not to be a pinball hit around the machine. You have to be the flipper. And
Yeah.
with that, I say
True.
my thoughts are done for the evening.
Yeah, wonderful, gentlemen. Yeah, thank you.
Thomas, why don't you close it?
Ah, yes. Be here now or be nowhere.
Thank you, sir. Rob?
It's been great, guys, and I look forward to more dialogue with the two of you and with what I hope is a growing community of listeners and participants.
Excellent. Bonsoir, mes amis.
Bonsoir.